This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Hello, welcome again to Midco Sports Magazine. Stories this week on fly fishing, football, and a fantastic athlete from South Dakota who is making his way toward the 2020 Olympic Games. We will take you to Minneapolis in our Midco Mag Rewind and check in on former Augustana University running back C.J. Ham as he rolls into his third season with the Minnesota Vikings. And we'll take you to the beautiful Black Hills of South Dakota and a story about women on the water and an effort to get more females into fly fishing. But we start with a young man from Rapid City, South Dakota, who not all that long ago won a handful of high school state championships in track and cross country. But now, Tony Smoragiewicz is one of the best triathletes in the United States, and he's currently working his way toward a spot on Team USA and hopefully the 2020 Olympic Games. Here's Elena Lanson.
Swim, bike, run. Athletes must master these three areas to compete in a triathlon. At first, Tony Smoragiewicz was only interested in one leg of a tri.
Yeah, so I started as a swimmer. My dad was a swimmer in high school and college, and then got into triathlons afterwards. So he got my brother and I interested in swimming when we were pretty young, like 8 or 9 years old.
It was only through a last-minute change in plans that would put Smoragiewicz into a race as an individual, taking on all three legs.
And then one year there was going to be like a first annual Rapid City triathlon. And I was going to do it as a relay. My dad was going to swim, I had a family friend who was going to bike, and I was going to run, and the friend bailed last minute. So my dad said, hey, how would you do the whole thing? And I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of hooked from then.
It took one race for Smoragiewicz to fall in love with the sport, even when knowing this new relationship was going to demand a lot of his attention.
I would say it's about 20 to 25 hours a week of training. It's like 6 days of running a week, 6 days of swimming, and maybe 5 days of biking. So most of those days have 2 to 3 different sports in the day, and then I lift weights for 2 days out of the week as well.
The hard work paid off in his senior year of high school when he placed third at Junior World Championships in China. After crossing the finish line, looking up and seeing his time, he knew it was just the beginning of a journey that would take him around the globe.
I don't think I ever realized or imagined that I would have gotten to all these countries for different races. I think last year I raced in 12 different countries, and it's just pretty amazing to be able to see the world from a different perspective. And it's, I think my favorite part about going to a new place is when you're there, it's like being a triathlete, you're kind of like always on vacation but never on vacation. Because you're always there you're there for work and you want to relax and kind of stay in a hotel room and get focused for racing. But it's fun to see the place when you have like a long bike ride and kind of see the backcountry and side streets of a city. So that's, I think, my favorite part about going to different places and traveling the world.
While work may have taken him far from home, home doesn't always seem so far away.
Most of the races are like across the world and they're really hard to get to, but my parents have gone to a lot more this year. So it's fun to have some familiar faces and family at the races you go to. Definitely out of the family, my grandma's the loudest cheer, and I think you could hear her on any point in the course if she was there.
The encouragement from family and friends and support from hard-earned sponsors has allowed Smoragiewicz to make racing his full-time job.
It's really feast or famine in the professional athletics world, and especially triathlon. And when you're starting into the sport, a lot of it is coming from a part-time job or parents or savings. But once you have more results, it's easier to get sponsors and funding from USA Triathlon.
Perfect. That was a great smile.
So currently Stanford Health is one of my biggest sponsors.
Got it. There you go. There you go.
They help support me here doing physiological testing.
See that finish line? Come on, bring it home, bring it home. Bring it
and
home.
help pay for travel around the world. And USA Triathlon has been a great support as well. And they've helped support me since I kind of just got into triathlon when I was 12 years old. So it's great to have support from companies and organizations like that helping athletes chase their dreams. I've really seen great improvements in my results since I was just able to focus on being a professional athlete.
With this large support system behind him, Smoragiewicz is now pushing towards his Olympic goal, qualifying for the 2020 Games in Tokyo.
It'd be pretty amazing and extraordinary to be there in 2020. There's still a lot of work and maybe some good luck to put together a race that would let me to qualify. But it'd be pretty awesome to represent South Dakota on the world stage.
Along with Smoragiewicz, fellow South Dakotan and longtime friend Tamara Gorman will also be looking to qualify for Tokyo, and the two friends may find themselves on Team USA's roster together.
I've known her since I've been like 8 years old, and she has a chance of making the Olympics as well. So it's cool to see her at all the races I go to. Pretty amazing to have someone that I've known since I've been 8 years old, and we're from Rapid City, South Dakota. I mean, if she qualifies for the individual event, and I do too, then we would probably be on the relay together. So that'd be pretty incredible to get tag after her or her tag after me in the Olympics in 2020.
From his family to his friends and sponsors, Tony Smoragiewicz has 3 teams behind him, so he can do the 3 things he loves the most at their best.
And joined by Elena Lanson. And the ultimate goal, obviously, is to make the 2020 Olympic team for Tony. Where does he sit right now?
Well, he had one race in August and he unfortunately didn't qualify then. He'll have another opportunity in May and hopefully he'll make it. And once those times are in, they'll be evaluated and the best 4, 2 guys, 2 girls, could be on the Olympic relay team, which is the first year they're having that. So if he could make it and if fellow South Dakotan Tamara Gorman could make it, they could tag each other in and out at the Olympics, which would be really cool.
All right, we can hope, right?
Yes,
we'll find
fingers
out.
crossed.
All right, Elena Lanson, thanks a lot. Up next, a kid from Duluth, Minnesota. Great football career at Augustana and Sioux Falls, who goes from elementary school gym teacher to the NFL. CJ Ham in our Midco Mag Rewind.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Time to rewind, and we brought you this story first here on Midco Sports Magazine back in August of 2017. It's about a man named CJ Ham, and it's a classic story of the road less traveled. He goes from Division II football in the NSIC to pro football in the NFL. Here's Carla Metz.
Left foot, right foot, left foot, right. It's how we learn to walk. It's the basics of running. And for life as an undrafted free agent in the NFL, it's the motion of perseverance. CJ Ham grew up in Duluth, Minnesota with hopes and dreams like most young kids, but his didn't include football, at least for the first 11 years of his life.
Actually, as a kid, I wanted to be in the NBA. I wanted to be the next type of Michael Jordan player. But I was actually just walking. I was walking down the alley, and this bigger guy came up to me and said, "Hey, do you play football?" And I said, "No, I've never played football before." And he's like, "Well, I want you to come out and try out for my team." So then I said, "Okay." And the next day, I was up there, put on the pads, and played for the first time. And ever since then, I've loved it.
Ham would go on to play at Duluth-Denfeld High School, and there he'd prove his talents were good enough for the next level. He'd sign with a Division II school out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 3 seasons and over 1,500 yards later,
he's got some room off the right side, goes through the line, he's down to the 10 to the 5, and he is in. Touchdown, CJ Ham.
A possible path for Ham in the pros would be unveiled.
After my junior season, I had a junior day where I think the Vikings and Cowboys came out to Sioux Falls, and they kind of just put in perspective that possibly this is a realistic goal, and it was still a long shot being from a Division II school, but just having that day definitely gave me a little confidence.
A long shot for sure. According to the NCAA, less than 2% of college football players will have the opportunity to play professionally. Despite the unlikely probability, Ham forged ahead on the field, left foot right, for a career-high 1,097 yards and 16 touchdowns during his senior season. His next step would be to focus on training.
When we first started to work with CJ, we kind of moved away from football and we were focusing on the individual tests. And he's a football player at heart. He's always wanted to be a football player, but when he came in, he knew he had to focus on the specific tests that were going to be administered on the pro days and on the combines.
He'd earn an invitation to the Minnesota Vikings minicamp, which would land him a free agent contract in May of 2016. He'd officially made it to the NFL, but a free agent contract comes with an immense amount of uncertainty.
I mean, it's a very stressful process, you know, especially going through preseason. Those first 2 roster cuts, I mean, you're sweating. You're really not knowing what's going to happen with your life. And you know, during that whole process, I got married. I had a daughter as well. Everything was kind of up in the air. Just to make it through the first roster cuts was, you know, it was a blessing in itself.
August 13th, 2016. The Minnesota Vikings opened the preseason against the Cincinnati Bengals.
From Nick Easton, handoff C.J. Ham inside the 10 to the 5. C.J. Ham to the end zone, touchdown.
I didn't even realize what happened until I was on the sideline. Like, it was one of those things where, you know, I crossed the end zone. Well, making the run in the first place, I was like, whoa, this is really happening. In the middle of my run, I'm like, I might score. This is crazy. And, you know, giving the ball back to the ref, going back to the end zone, going back to the sideline and sitting there and just like, wow, you know, that really just happened. I just scored my first NFL touchdown.
He'd rushed for 140 yards with 2 scores during the preseason, and just as things were looking promising, he was released.
They wanted me on practice squad. It was a very big confidence booster for me. And I took it as a redshirt year. You know, when you redshirt in college, you take a year to, you know, get better, get stronger, get faster. And I really take it that way. And looking back on it, I think the practice squad year really helped me a lot.
His work ethic and attitude would not go unnoticed. And in December, the day before Christmas, he'd get the call to suit up for a game against the Green Bay Packers. Ham wouldn't get any minutes on the field, but it was a taste of what would come. He'd spend the offseason training, speaking, and working at children's camps while facing some ambiguity with his own position.
He's first got to know where they want him to play, and that'll kind of tell where his weight needs to be, if he's got to put weight on to play fullback, or if he's going to maybe lean up and have a running back position. You know, he really isn't sure where they want him just yet.
But in May of 2017, 1 full year later after signing as an undrafted free agent, the next step became clearer. Ham was named as the starting fullback for the Minnesota Vikings.
There's always going to be doubters in whatever you do, whatever job you're going for, there's always going to be somebody who says you can't do it. And, you know, pretty much I just want to portray that it doesn't matter what people think. You know, if you really think you can do it, as cliche as it sounds, you know, you can go out and get it done.
Well, C.J. Ham turned 26 years old over this summer, and he was scheduled to be a free agent, but the Vikings did re-sign him to another 1-year deal. So this will be his 4th year now in the NFL. And Ham is listed on the Minnesota Vikings roster as the #1 fullback on the depth chart for 2019. Fly fishing in the Black Hills, still to come here on Midco Sports Magazine. But first, why is there a 7th inning stretch in baseball? Here's this week's segment of Just So You Know.
Ever wonder why everyone gets up to stretch their legs in the middle of the 7th inning? Well, history has 2 conflicting ideas on how the tradition got started. One theory says it began April 14th, 1910. President Taft got up to stretch his legs after sitting on the uncomfortable wooden seats. And not wanting to be rude, the rest of the ballpark stood up with him to honor the nation's leader. But theory 2 suggests that Taft may have been a follower of the ritual. In the 1880s, a guy named Brother Jasper Brennan brought the game to Manhattan College. He was in charge of both the players and the fans, and the rules stated that you couldn't move or leave your seat until the game was over. There were obvious problems with asking students not to move for hours, so he implemented a timeout before the bottom of the 7th so they could get up and stretch for a few. Either way, it gives us a chance to see how different teams put their own flair on the break and to stock up on snacks before the final innings. Just so you know.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Our next story takes place amongst the beautiful sights and the soothing sounds of a trout stream in the Black Hills of South Dakota. The story is a little bit about an effort to get more females into fly fishing, but it's mostly about how one Rapid City woman was already into it, and she has now become a bit of a mentor to others and has netted a lot of new friendships because of it. Two things hit you when you step into a stream in the Black Hills near Rapid City: the chill of the water and the serenity of the surroundings.
You know, the nice thing about fly fishing is you can backpack into mountain streams and lakes, and you just don't see as many people, and it's just beautiful. I feel like the Black Hills are definitely a little bit of a, not necessarily a place a lot of people go for fly fishing, which is kind of nice. You know, it keeps it for us, and whoever comes out is very surprised when they do find great fishing here.
Kari Strong is an amateur angler, but experience has developed her instincts to near perfection since she started doing this 4 years ago.
I wish it was a little bit slower. It's a little high right now, but like that spot right over there that's kind of glassy and slower, it's probably where they're holding at, deeper areas. I'm just trying to run this streamer through, kind of get their attention and see if they'll follow it. When it starts to warm up like this, they're gonna start eating on top more. Oh, there we go. Hey buddy, who's got my net? Oh, you got it, it's okay, don't worry about it. I got it, I'll bring him to you. Hey, thanks. Nice little rainbow. Hey bud. Gonna get a picture with him if you don't mind. That was a good one. That's a good little rainbow. You try to put them back in upstream so they get, you know, water and oxygen in their gills, and kind of revives them. Keep them in the water as much as possible so you don't stress them out. Fly fishing is mainly catch and release.
Well, this is definitely different than sitting in a boat and going after a walleye with a bottom bouncer and a night crawler. Fly fishing demands a precise technique and a unique presentation. You can use a fly or a fry that looks like a tiny bait fish, or today a streamer, a bigger, heavier lure.
On those streamers, you really fill it so they strike it, and so you fill it, pull your line, and you just set it a little bit. But then if it was a bigger fish, you'd almost just have to put on your drag and let it run until you wear it out. But I just hold it here, and then I start to reel up my line. If the light's just right, I can see a fish as it stalks my streamer and see it hit, and that's pretty cool too. Catching fish is more fun. It's not necessarily what it's about, but I definitely want to catch fish when I'm out here. It definitely makes it enjoyable. I'm not even that picky. If I see, like when you saw the strike indicator go down, whether it was a weed or a fish, just knowing that they're there makes me happy. Going, okay, I'm really close. Maybe the color's right, but the size of the bug is wrong. And so I can switch it up a little bit and hopefully catch whatever's there. But just knowing that they're there, whether they're eating my fly or not, is exciting for me.
So to choose the right fly is a big challenge, and then to get it right where you want it on the water is another tricky task. It can take a long time to become a master caster.
A gentleman told me, and it's an extension of your arm, and that's what it took for me to go, oh, and just the light flicked on finally. But it took 3 years for just one saying to go, oh, that's what I need to do. With the streamer, I'm being a little bit sloppier, but I think that's just because it doesn't have to be as precise as dry fly fishing. When you lay your dry fly out there, it has to look natural, like a fly is landing on the water. You don't want your line in the way. So you have to cast a lot better. This is just a heavy object I'm throwing out there and getting their attention.
Strong says her brother and sister-in-law got her started in fly fishing on a family trip to the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming, and she's been hooked on it since. In the last few years, she has become a guide and a guru.
I started a women's group in Rapid, Real Women of Fly Fishing, and I've taken women out fly fishing and taught a class at Outdoor Women of South Dakota in Chamberlain, and yeah, I just have fun with it. A lot of people get a hold of me and I'm going, I'm not really that great at it, but I enjoy doing it, and if I can teach you what I know and then you take off with it, great. So it's really been kind of just my go-to for happiness.
So Strong has made it a point to spread the joy. And her networking and workshops and invitations to share the experience have led others to embrace it, some almost immediately.
One of the first women that came to my first day on the water is like my adventure buddy. She went and bought all of her gear that night after that was her first time on the water. And we've been traveling all over ever since, fly fishing and just trying new things. She lives in Pierre and we're best friends, and we had never met before that. I love the fact that the networking, like it's brought so many people together, so many women together.
And yes, unfortunately, women on the water don't always get total respect from their male counterparts, but Strong just flies right past them.
I still get the looks like, are you fly fishing? But going, yeah, I love it. So I wish I would have got into it way earlier.
Well, Kari has another great story about a fishing trip to Alaska. She got sick, couldn't go out on the boat to go salmon fishing that day, so she got on her social media network, found a women's group that was going fly fishing, and amongst that group just happened to be another woman named Mary who was from Spearfish, South Dakota. So they both made a fly fishing friend 3,000 miles from home. Thanks for watching Midco Sports Magazine. You can find this episode and all episodes on YouTube and IGTV.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.